Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so work together 4-3. It says we're going to post our column totals to our general ledger. So again, yesterday we went through and did our journal, and that was starting at the top and going down. Now we're going to go ahead and do the bottom. Leonard Witowski owns a service businesses that use the following accounts. We have cash through rent expense. So what we have to do is I need to allow a flash so I can see my work. I'm loading very slowly. There we are. Here is our journal page. Now, down here on the bottom, we are posting our totals, and our totals are for March of the current year. So I post individually, doing just my general debit and credit columns. I go all the way down. These have all been posted, and if I look right here, I can see that this says post reference 120. The fact that it starts with the 1 tells me, hey, this is an asset, and then this would be my second asset account number. Just remember that your account numbers relate to that. So here we have general debit. We already said that this $2,326 is not going to go into an individual account because it is a combination of all of these numbers above, and it deals with prepaid insurance, supplies, accounts receivable, rent expense, accounts payable, and Leonard Witowski drawing. Because of that, I am going to just put in parentheses a check mark. Now, the question for students sometimes will be, well, why do we put it in parentheses? If I didn't put parentheses right here, 410, what would it look like? Would it look any different than this 163? Most people would assume if you don't put in parentheses, it would mean $410 or 110 if I was posting to cash. So we need to make sure any numbers that go in our columns, if it has to do with the post reference, needs to go in parentheses to indicate that it's an account number, not a value that we're entering in. So we're not going to do anything with general debit and general credit, so I'm going to go ahead and take a look at sales. So right here, I'm going to go ahead and open up my sales account. To post my sales, I'm going to start first with my date, and I always have to put my month first, and that's March. The date is the 31st. I know it's the 31st because that's the last day of the month, and that's where it says totals. Post reference. Who wants to take a tap at what the post reference is? Why is it 1? Page 1, right here. It tells you that we are using page 1 of the journal, so I'm going to go ahead and put a 1 there. Now, sales credit. So sales is being credited $838. This is my columns that I'm going to deal with for the individual transaction, and these are my balances. So I have to do a credit here of $838. Now, what was my balance in my account before the $838? 0. So if I have a 0 balance and I credited $838, what is my new balance? $838 as a credit. Now, the other thing that students do that sometimes they get a little confused on is I have done a really good job of teaching you that debits and credits need to equal. Okay? It is not the case when we look at a ledger. A ledger, all we're doing is updating it and giving us a point value, or not a point value, a balance of what's in the account. So I don't need to have a matching debit and credit. All I'm doing is here is going to be my individual transactions, and this is going to be my running total. So do not try to get your debits and credits to equal on your ledger. The last thing that I always do when I'm journalizing is I take my account number 410, and I'm going to put that back up here in parentheses to indicate that I posted it. Now, I'm going to move over to my next column. My next column is cash debit. First thing I have to do is put in my month. Date is 31st. 1 is my post reference because I am journalizing from page 1 of my journal. Now, this column right here is debit, so I need to do my debit before I do my credit because we have to move top to bottom, left to right. Now, it's important that we move top to bottom, left to right, because right here, I want to point out on line 4 of my journal, do you see how Joshua Supplies is credited here for 78? And down here, we have accounts payable Joshua Supplies is going to be debited 50. if you didn't do them in order, it wouldn't work right in your ledger. So it's really important that you move top to bottom, left to right. So I'm going to do cash debit for $5,775. Previously it had a balance of nothing. So if I take 0 plus 5,775, it would give me 5,775 as a debit. Last thing I do is I put my account number 110. Back up on top to indicate I just put that number into that account number. Now I'm going to do cash credit. Every line in your ledger needs to have a date. So I have to put the 31st again. Post reference is 1 to indicate that I'm getting it from page 1 of a journal. And then I am going to go through and do cash credit of $2,085. Now, I do not put $2,085 on my balance as a credit. I have to do math. Previously, my balance was $5,775 as a debit. I just credited it $2,085, so therefore, I now have a balance of $3,690 as a debit. Why a debit? Anyone want to take that? Why it's a debit? Which one's bigger? Yeah. You would agree that debit's bigger, right? So it would have to have a debit balance. Here's the other thing. What type of an account is this? It's an asset. How do we know it's an asset? It starts with a 1. Assets have what for normal balance? Debit. If you had a credit balance for an asset, that should tell you, oh, something's wrong. Okay? If you had a debit balance on a liability, something's wrong. So your balance should always be what that should match the normal balance side that we did with our T accounts. So the last thing I do is go back up on top, 110. Check my answer. Now this one was much shorter than yesterday's, agreed? Because all we had to do was post 3 numbers in there. That's okay, I have to give them this. You're welcome. No, that was actually Owen Olson. He